If you're a Black woman who has carried loss that is so heavy that it shifted your identity, your confidence, or your direction, this message is for you. Because so many of us start grieving long before we ever realize that's what it is. And I want to say this to you with love and truth. You're not crazy. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're grieving something that mattered, even if nobody ever gave you permission to name it. So before I get deeper into this video, I want to introduce myself. My name is Carmen Andrea of CarmenAndreaHarris.com. I'm a former teacher and educator with a Master of Arts in Teaching, and I'm also a certified grief counselor. I teach women how to heal, rebuild, and live well after loss. You can learn more about me, more about my story, and how I even got into this space on my website, CarmenAndreaHarris.com. So let's go ahead and get into this video. And the title of this video is I Was Grieving Before My Husband Died. So Black women carry grief that the world rarely sees. We carry it in our bodies, we carry it in our silence, in our responsibilities, and in our strength. We carry it while raising families, holding marriages together, picking up the pieces in the aftermath of widowhood, building careers, serving communities, serving in ministry, and showing up even when we're exhausted. Grief doesn't only show up when someone dies, it shows up when life shifts, when identity changes, when the version of you that once felt solid and secure suddenly disappears. And I know that feeling very intimately. So before marriage and motherhood, I had a thriving teaching career in Georgia's highest paying school district. I loved the work. I was on the leadership team. I earned my master's degree while I was in the classroom. I loved the salary at the time and the stability. I was moving up in the ranks, and I thought I was going to retire as a teacher in that school district. I thought I was going to move along the path of getting my specialist degree after my master's and then eventually getting my doctorate and retiring in the field of education. Then one day, because of a technicality with my certification requirements, it was gone. I no longer had my career. And with that, the identity that I had built and attached to my teaching career was gone as well. This happened 10 months after I had given birth to my first daughter. It happened 8 months after I had closed on my first home. And it happened 2 months after I had gotten married to my late husband. I didn't know it then, but I was grieving the loss of who I thought I would be and who I no longer thought I was because of my career. Now, financially, we were okay, so I stayed home with our baby. I poured myself into motherhood. I started writing my first manuscript. I'm a published author as well, a 2-time published author, and at that time, I started writing my first manuscript. I tried to rebuild through ambition, creativity, and being a wife and a mother. A year later, I took a pre-K position that was $30,000 less than what I had made as a certified teacher. I did this so I could get out of the house and so I could start bringing in some income because I had always been an ambitious, independent woman. Then we became pregnant with our second daughter, and I disciplined myself to finish the manuscript before I gave birth to her. I literally finished writing my very first manuscript 2 weeks before I gave birth to my second daughter. Then the school laid everyone off while I was on maternity leave. And once again, I was back home, let go from the same career twice. When I look back on that time, I know that God was speaking, but at the time, I didn't have the clarity to recognize his voice like I do now. During that season, I ended up self-publishing my first book, the manuscript that I had started and finished writing before I gave birth to my second daughter. I also launched a digital literacy course based around the steps that I took to teach my oldest daughter how to read at age 3. And from that, I built an education consulting business. I also learned video marketing, and I found my lane teaching online. I was working really hard. I was putting my all into it. I was showing up. I was being consistent, but I was still unfulfilled. I was still longing. I was still grieving the woman that I used to be, the independence, the confidence, the stability, the identity. And I didn't know that that's what it was at the time. I didn't know that the feeling that I was feeling was grief because no one had died. I didn't realize that the feeling that I was feeling was grief until after my husband died. That's when I made the connection. It wasn't until I walked through the deepest loss of my life, the death of my husband and the father of my children, that I finally understood that grief is not just about death all the time. Grief can be about losing access to someone or something that once anchored you, something or someone that once made you feel secure, like home. And Black women, we know this grief all too well. We grieve the careers that we've built. We grieve the dreams that we've had to put on hold. We grieve the versions of ourselves that we lost while taking care of everybody else. We grieve silently because many of us were taught to be strong, to push through, to keep going, and to just make it work by any means necessary. But strength without giving yourself space to grieve can become suffering. I'm going to say that again. Strength without giving yourself space to grieve can become suffering. And you deserve more than that. And I had to tell myself that I deserve more than that. So here's what I want you to understand. Grief doesn't disappear with time. People love to say time heals all wounds. That's like an age-old adage, but that's not true. Grief doesn't disappear with time. You don't heal just because time has passed. It doesn't get erased by busyness, achievement, or pretending, which is something that I don't know about y'all. It's something that I used to be very good at. Grief has to be honored. It has to be felt, and it has to be processed. Now, we live in a very grief avoidant society, and Black women live in a world that often avoids our pain altogether. But grief is a natural human response to loss and life transition. Everyone talks about healing. In fact, on social media, healing has become a buzzword and it's like a trend. But in order for you to heal, you have to first grieve. And I'm saying this especially to those of you who have experienced very deep grief and loss and major life transitions like I have. Not necessarily the death of a husband, but the literal death of a person, maybe major life transitions to where the entire flow of your life was disrupted. I'm speaking specifically to you all. Like, you have to grieve first before you can even embark upon the journey of healing. I want you to think of grief as a doorway. Grief is a doorway. And healing is what happens once you walk through it. So I just want you to know that you can rebuild your identity. You can rediscover purpose. You can live well after loss. And this doesn't happen by erasing your story. It happens by honoring your story. You are not starting from scratch. You're starting from wisdom, resilience, and lived experience. And you don't have to walk this journey alone, which is something that I know a lot of us like to do. We like to isolate. We like to figure it out on our own. But help and support is available to you. If any of this resonated with you and you want guidance on your grief and your healing journey, I want you to visit my website or click the link in the description, carmenandreaharris.com. I have digital resources that I created specifically for women like us, and I also offer one-on-one support if you need deeper help. Take the step that feels right for you wherever you may be at. So as I close this video out, I want you to know that your grief is real. Your grief is valid. And I also want you to know that your healing is possible and your life is not over. So thank you so much for watching this video. I would love for you to leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what type of grief or loss you've experienced, what type of life transition you may be navigating through right now. I would love to hear where you're at on your journey. So thanks so much for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace and blessings.